I spent 15 years building the logistics network that made this company millions. But when the founder's arrogant son took over, he fired me on the spot, sneering that dock workers don't negotiate. He didn't know I was the only one with the clearance codes for his $10 million shipment. One phone call later, his cargo and his legacy were locked in indefinite federal detention. The smell of a shipping warehouse is specific. It's a mix of diesel fumes from the forklifts, the sharp tang of packing tape, and the dusty, fibrous scent of corrugated cardboard. To most people, it smells like work. To me, it smelled like an ecosystem I had spent 2 decades mastering. I was standing on the catastrophic edge of Bay 4, holding a clipboard that felt heavier than usual. It was 8:15 a.m. on a Tuesday, and the air inside the Henderson Logistics main hub was already thick with tension. "Martha, the manifest for the Singapore crates has a typo on the SKU," Greg said. He was the foreman, a man in his 50s with hands like catcher's mitts and a permanent furrow in his brow. "If we send this out, Customs in Port Klang is going to flag it." I took the clipboard, uncapping my pen. "I see it. It's a digit transposition. I'll override it in the system before noon. Don't load it until I give the green light, Greg." "You're the boss," he nodded, relief washing over his face. That was how it worked. I was the director of logistics. I wasn't just pushing paper. I was the firewall between a profitable quarter and a federal fine. I was 45 years old, and I had been working here since I was 25. I knew every code, every loophole, and every inspector from Seattle to Shanghai. But the ecosystem was changing. Mr. Henderson, the founder, had passed away 6 months ago, a heart attack. The company had mourned him genuinely. He was a tough old bird, but he respected the grit of the job. In his place stood Brandon Wood. Brandon was 32, wore suits that cost more than Greg's car, and had an MBA that he seemed to believe was a license to dismantle everything his father had built. He walked onto the warehouse floor at 8:30 a.m., flanked by 2 nervous-looking assistants. He didn't wear a safety vest. He didn't wear safety goggles. He walked through the yellow safety lines like they were suggestions for poor people. "Martha," Brandon's voice cut through the hum of the machinery. He didn't shout, but his voice had that nasal, carrying quality of someone who has never been told to be quiet. I turned, keeping my face neutral. "Good morning, Mr. Wood. We're prepping the Trans-Pacific shipment. It's the big one, 10 million in high-end processors." Brandon stopped 3 feet from me, looking around the warehouse with a sneer of distaste. He pinched the bridge of his nose. "I've been looking at the payroll, Martha. Why do we have 4 guys on Bay 4? Efficiency models suggest 2 could do it if they picked up the pace." I blinked. "Greg and his team are handling sensitive electronics, Brandon. If they drop a pallet, we lose $50,000 in seconds. Speed isn't the priority, integrity is." "Integrity doesn't show up on my quarterly projections," Brandon snapped, brushing an imaginary speck of dust off his Italian lapel. "Speed does. Revenue velocity does. You're running this place like a charity for slow movers." "I'm running it like a logistics hub that has a 99% arrival safety rating," I countered, keeping my voice calm despite the heat rising in my neck. He stepped closer, invading my personal space. I could smell his cologne, something musky and expensive that clashed with the diesel. "My father was soft, Martha. He let the inmates run the asylum. I'm here to tighten the screws. I want that shipment on the trucks by 10:00 a.m. Not noon. 10:00 a.m. "That's impossible," I said flatly. "The customs manifest needs a manual override on a SKU error. If we ship before I fix it, the automated system at the port will reject the entry. The cargo will sit on the dock." Brandon laughed. It was a cold, barking sound. "It's a typo, Martha. You think the Port Authority cares about a typo on a $10 million haul? Money talks. Push it through." "That's not how federal customs works," I warned him. "You can't bribe an algorithm, and you can't rush compliance." He looked at me with dead eyes. "Do as you're told. I'm the CEO, you're the help. get it on the truck. By 9:45 a.m., the atmosphere in the warehouse was toxic. I could feel the eyes of the crew on me. They knew something was wrong. Greg was moving slowly, stalling, waiting for me to give him the signal that the paperwork was clean. I was at my terminal in the glass-walled office overlooking the floor, frantically trying to patch the SKU error. But the system was lagging. It needed a server handshake that took time. The door to my office slammed open. It wasn't a knock, it was a breach. Brandon Wood marched in, his face flushed red. "Why are the forklifts idle?" I stood up, turning from the screen. "Because I haven't cleared the digital signature yet. The system is updating. If we move the goods now, they leave the building as unverified cargo. That puts our bond license at risk." "I don't care about the license bond," Brandon yelled, slamming his hand on my desk. My coffee mug jumped. "I have investors coming at noon. I told them the shipment would be en route. You are making me a liar." "I am trying to save you from a federal audit," I shouted back, losing my patience. "Brandon, listen to me. This isn't a negotiation with a supplier. This is customs and border protection. They don't care who your father was." Brandon went still. The redness in his face settled into a pale, icy mask. He straightened his jacket. "You're right," he said softly. "This isn't a negotiation." He walked over to the window that looked out onto the warehouse floor, where Greg and the team were watching us. Then he turned back to me. "You're fired." The words hung in the air, absurd and heavy. "Excuse me." "You're fired," he repeated, louder this time. "Pack your things. I'll have Caroline override the system. She's young, she knows computers better than you anyway." "Caroline is a junior clerk," I said, my voice shaking with a mix of rage and disbelief. "She doesn't have the authorization codes. Only I do." "Then give them to her," Brandon demanded, "and get out." "I'm not giving you my personal clearance codes," I said, crossing my arms. "That is tied to my federal ID. If I give them to you, I'm liable for whatever mess you make." Brandon sneered. "I don't need your codes, I'll call it. I'll have them scrub your access and bypass the lock. You are obsolete, Martha. You're an overpriced relic from my father's era." He opened the office door and gestured to the warehouse floor. "Go on, get out, we don't need you." "You are making a mistake," I said, grabbing my purse. "A $10 million mistake." "Dock workers don't negotiate," Brandon said, loud enough for the entire floor to hear. "And neither do I." The silence that followed was deafening. Greg looked up at the window, his face pale. Caroline, who was sitting at a desk just outside my office, looked like she was about to be sick. Brandon smiled, a cruel, victorious little smirk. "Security will escort you. Don't touch the computer." The walk from my office to the exit felt like a funeral procession for my career. 2 security guards, men I had bought coffee for at Christmas, men who knew my kids' names, flanked me. They couldn't even look me in the eye. "Sorry, Ms. Brooks," one of them, a guy named Dave, whispered as we passed the break room. "He called us down 5 minutes ago, said we had to do it by the book." "It's okay, Dave," I said, keeping my head high. "You're just doing your job." I walked past Caroline's desk. She was typing furiously, tears streaming down her face. Brandon was standing over her shoulder, barking instructions. "Just hit force send. I don't care what the warning box says." Brandon was yelling at her. Caroline looked up at me, her eyes pleading for help. I paused for a split second. I wanted to tell her to stop. I wanted to save her from the stress, but I was no longer the director. I was a trespasser. "Goodbye, Caroline," I said softly. "Get her out of here," Brandon shouted without looking at me. I walked onto the warehouse floor. The hum of the machinery had stopped. Every single worker had killed their engines. Greg stood by the bay door, his hat in his hands. "Martha," he said as I got close, "this is insane. He can't run this floor." "He thinks he can," I said, adjusting my coat. "Let him try." "What about the shipment?" Greg whispered. "Do I load it?" "If he orders you to, you do it, Greg. Don't lose your pension over this," I told him sternly. Protect yourself." He nodded, looking like he wanted to punch the wall. Dave opened the heavy steel side door, and the cool air of the overcast morning hit me. It had started to drizzle. It was a perfect, pathetic fallacy. "Take her badge," Brandon's voice came over the intercom system. He was watching from the glass tower. I unclipped my ID badge, the one that had given me access to this building for 15 years, and handed it to Dave. He took it like it was a live grenade. "Take care, Martha," Dave said. The heavy door clanged shut behind me. I stood in the parking lot, the rain misting against my face. I looked up at the building. I could see Brandon in the window, watching to make sure I got in my car. I walked to my sedan, my hands trembling, not from fear, but from adrenaline. I unlocked the car and sat in the driver's seat. The silence of the car interior was a stark contrast to the chaos inside. I took a deep breath. Brandon thought he had won. He thought that by taking my badge and kicking me off the property, he had severed my connection to the shipment. He thought the system was just the computer on my desk. He was an idiot. The system wasn't the computer. The system was the network of human beings and federal agents I had cultivated for 2 decades. And specifically, the system relied on the authorized agent of record. Until the paperwork was officially transferred to a new agent, which took at least 48 hours of processing with the government, I was still legally responsible for every container that left that dock. If that shipment went out with a falsified manifest or a forced override, my name would be on the violation. Brandon wasn't just firing me, he was setting me up to take the fall for his negligence. I reached into my purse and pulled out my personal cell phone. I scrolled past my kids, past the pizza place, until I found a contact I hadn't used in 3 years. Inspector Brody Gray, CBP. Brody Gray? We went back to a messy incident in 2004 where a paperwork error almost cost him his badge. I had stayed up for 3 nights straight finding the documentation that cleared his name. He had told me then, "If you ever need to nuke a problem from orbit, you call me." I looked at the warehouse one last time. I watched the bay doors open. Greg was loading the trucks. Brandon had forced the issue. I pressed call. It rang twice. "Martha Brooks," a gravelly voice answered. "I haven't heard from the Queen of the Dock in a long time. Everything okay?" "Hello, Brody," I said, my voice steady and cold. "I need to report a potential customs violation on a shipment leaving Henderson Logistics within the hour. It's moving under a forced manifest override." There was a pause on the line, then the sound of a chair shifting. "Talk to me," Brody said. The tone of his voice had shifted instantly from friendly to professional. "Listen, Brody, I was just escorted off the premises by the new CEO, Brandon Wood. He forced a shipment through the system without resolving a critical SKU error," I explained, watching the rain blur the warehouse lights in my rearview mirror. "The automated system flagged it, but he bypassed the lock. That means the manifest is digitally signed by me, the previous authorized agent, but the actual cargo data is corrupted." "You're the authorized agent of record," Brody asked sharply. "Until the paperwork processes to transfer it to someone else, yes. That takes 48 hours. Right now, my name is on a $10 million shipment of high-end processors that doesn't match its paperwork." "Jesus, Martha, that's a serious violation. If that container hits the port with a bad manifest under your name, you're looking at fines, maybe even a license revocation." "Exactly," I said, gripping the steering wheel. "That's why I'm calling you. I need you to flag the shipment before it gets to the gate. I need to disavow the entry immediately. I am formally notifying CBP that I did not authorize the override." "Understood," Brody said. I could hear him typing in the background. "Give me the container numbers." I recited them from memory. HL 4098 through HL 4102, 5 containers, destination, Singapore via Port of Tacoma. "Got it," Brody muttered. "Okay, Martha, I'm putting a do not load order on these containers in the system. But if they're already on the truck, they're going to hit the terminal gate in about an hour. I'll alert the gate inspectors. We'll pull them for a level 3 inspection." "A level 3?" I asked, a cold smile touching my lips. A level 3 inspection was the nuclear option. It meant every single box, every single pallet would be unloaded, opened, and counted by hand. It would take days, maybe weeks. "Yeah," Brody said. "If the manifest is dirty, we treat it as high risk. And since the CEO forced the override, it looks like potential smuggling or fraud. We have to be thorough." "Thank you, Brody," I said. "I just want my name clear." "Consider it done. And Martha, if this guy gives you any trouble, let me know. The Port Authority doesn't take kindly to amateurs messing with the supply chain." "He's about to find that out," I said. I hung up and started my car. As I drove away, I saw the first truck pulling out of the Henderson lot. Greg was in the driver's seat, looking miserable. He didn't see me. I didn't go home. I drove to a diner about 5 miles from the port, a place called the Rusty Anchor, where drivers and logistics managers often met for breakfast. It was neutral ground. I ordered a coffee and opened my laptop. I had been locked out of the company email, but I still had access to the public tracking portals. I could see the status of the containers. Status in transit. ETA to port gate, 45 minutes. My phone buzzed. It was Caroline. "Martha, oh my God, are you okay?" she was whispering. "I'm fine, Caroline. Where are you?" "I'm in the bathroom. He's terrifying, Martha. He's screaming at everyone. He told Greg that if the shipment isn't at the port by noon, he's firing the whole warehouse team." "He can." "Do that," I said calmly. "Union rules." "He doesn't care. He says he'll hire scabs. He's on the phone with investors right now, bragging about how he streamlined the process and eliminated the bottleneck. He called you the bottleneck, Martha." "Let him brag," I said. "Caroline, listen to me carefully. Do not sign anything. If he asks you to put your name on any document regarding this shipment you refuse, tell him you're not authorized. Do you understand?" "Yes," she whimpered. "But he's using your login. He made it reset your password, but he's still using your account to approve things." My blood ran cold. Identity theft. "Okay," I said, my voice hardening. "That's good to know. Caroline, go back to your desk. Keep your head down. And whatever happens in the next hour, do not panic. It's not your fault." "What's going to happen?" "Just wait," I said. I hung up and took a sip of my coffee. It was bitter, but it cleared my head. Brandon was digging his own grave with a backhoe. By using my account after firing me, he was committing fraud. I looked at my watch. The trucks would be hitting the port gate any minute. I imagined the scene. The trucks pulling up to the massive automated gates, the drivers scanning their IDs, the system flashing red, the gate arms staying down. Then the sirens. The red phone at Henderson Logistics would ring. It was a dedicated line from customs, meant for urgent issues. It sat right on my old desk. Now it sat on Brandon's desk. At 10:45 a.m., my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Caroline. It was Brandon. I let it ring. It rang again immediately, and a third time. I finally picked up on the fourth attempt. "Hello." "Martha," Brandon screamed. He wasn't using his CEO voice anymore. He sounded like a frightened child. "What did you do?" "Excuse me," I asked innocently. "I believe you fired me, Mr. Wood. I'm currently unemployed." "The trucks are stuck at the gate. Customs has seized them. They're saying there's a code black on the shipment. What the hell is a code black?" "A code black," I repeated, feigning surprise. "Oh, that's not good. That usually means a severe security violation. Did you override the safety protocols, Brandon?" I just clicked approve," he stammered. "The system said warning, mismatch, but I thought it was just a glitch. Now they're saying the entire shipment is under federal hold. They're talking about seizing the trucks." "Well," I said slowly, enjoying every syllable, That sounds like a problem for the authorized agent of record. Who is that currently? It's still under your login, Brandon admitted, his voice dropping. Ah, I said. So you committed fraud by impersonating a licensed broker to bypass federal safety checks. Silence. Martha, you have to fix this, he pleaded. Call them, tell them it was a mistake, tell them we fixed it. I can't do that, Brandon, I said. I'm not an employee. I have no authority to speak for Henderson Logistics, and besides, dock workers don't negotiate. Martha, please, he yelled. This is $10 million. The investors are here. They're in the conference room. If this shipment doesn't clear, the deal collapses. Then you better go tell them the truth, I said. That you fired the only person who knew how to run the shipping department because you wanted to save a few bucks on payroll. I'll hire you back, he shouted. Right now, double your salary, just make the call. No, I said. I think I'll enjoy my severance. Good luck with the audit, Brandon. I hung up. 30 seconds later, he called again. I blocked the number. Then I called Brody. Status update, I asked. It's a mess down here, Martha, Brody said, sounding almost gleeful. The trucks are backed up for a mile. We flagged the containers. The drivers are furious. But here's the kicker. When we scanned the first container, the density readings were way off. Off how? I asked, frowning. The manifest says computer processors. But the X-ray is showing something else mixed in with the pallets. Something much denser. Organic material. My heart stopped. Organic like drugs. No, Brody said. Like rare wood or ivory. We're not sure yet. We're cracking them open now. But Martha, if this guy was overriding the system to hide something, he's in a world of hurt. This isn't just a typo anymore. I had no idea, I whispered. Mr. Henderson would never. It's not Henderson, Brody said. The manifest was modified this morning. By the user CEO admin, that's your boy Brandon. He modified the content description. He tried to, Brody corrected. But he did it wrong. He changed the weight but not the category. That's why the system flagged the error in the first place. He was trying to smuggle something out, Martha, and he was too stupid to do it right. The next 3 hours were a surreal blur. I sat in the rusty anchor, my phone, buzzing incessantly with calls from unknown numbers, probably panicking investors or Brandon's lawyers. I ignored them all. I watched the local news on the diner's TV. At 1:00 p.m., a breaking news banner flashed across the screen. Major cargo seizure at Port of Tacoma. Customs and Border Protection halts $10 million shipment. The camera cut to a live shot of the port entrance. There were police cars, flashing lights, and a line of Henderson Logistics trucks stopped dead in the inspection lane. A reporter stood in front of the chaos, breathless. Authorities have confirmed a significant discrepancy in the manifest of a high-value electronics shipment from Henderson Logistics, the reporter said. Sources say the shipment was flagged for potential contraband, smuggling, after a forced override of safety protocols earlier this morning. I took a slow sip of my coffee. Contraband smuggling. The words felt heavy, dangerous. Brandon wasn't just incompetent, he was criminal. At 1:30 p.m., my phone rang with a number I recognized. It wasn't Brandon. It was Attorney Lynn, the company's corporate counsel. A good man, usually calm, but he sounded frazzled. Martha, Lynn said, his voice tight, we need to talk off the record. I'm not an employee, Lynn, I said, keeping my guard up. I can't discuss company business. This isn't business, Lynn hissed. This is a federal investigation. CBP just raided the executive offices. They're seizing computers. They're looking for Brandon. Looking for him? I asked. He was in the office this morning. He's gone, Lynn said. He slipped out the back when the agents arrived. Martha, did you know about the secondary cargo? Secondary cargo? I repeated. I knew about the processors. What else was in there? Exotic timber, Lynn whispered. Illegal Brazilian rosewood. Tons of it. hidden inside the crates marked as server racks. It's worth a fortune on the black market, and highly illegal to export without a CITES permit. My jaw dropped. Rosewood. That explained the density discrepancy Brody had mentioned. Brandon wasn't just cutting corners on logistics, he was using his father's company to smuggle endangered wood. He tried to modify the manifest this morning to hide the weight difference, Lynn continued. That's why he fired you. He knew you'd never approve it. He needed you out of the way so he could force the system to accept the falsified weight. And he was too stupid to realize that the automated system cross-references weight with volume, I said, shaking my head. He triggered the flag himself. Exactly, Lynn sighed. Now the entire shipment is seized. The processors, the wood, the trucks, everything. It's indefinite detention, Martha. The company is frozen. The accounts are frozen. And Brandon's. Like I said, he's in the wind, but they'll find him. His fingerprints are all over the override. Good luck, Lynn, I said. I hope you have good malpractice insurance. I hung up. The waitress came by to refill my coffee. You okay, hun? You look like you've seen a ghost. No, I smiled, just watching the news. By late afternoon, the gravity of the situation had sunk in. I went home, turning off my phone to escape the barrage of calls. I needed to think. My house was quiet. I made tea and sat on my back porch, watching the rain stop. The air smelled fresh, clean. It was a stark contrast to the toxic cloud hanging over Henderson Logistics. I thought about Mr. Henderson. He had built that company from a single truck. He had been proud of its reputation. We move the world, Martha, he used to say, but we do it right. Brandon had destroyed that legacy in less than 6 months. Around 5:00 p.m., a knock at my door startled me. I looked through the peephole. It was Greg. He looked wrecked. His uniform was soaked, his hat in his hands. I opened the door. Martha, he said, his voice cracking. It's a mess. The feds shut down the warehouse. Everyone's sent home. They're interviewing people. Come in, Greg, I said, stepping aside. Did they talk to you? Yeah, he nodded, stepping into the hallway. They asked who authorized the loading. I told them the truth. I told them you refused and Brandon ordered it. I told them he fired you because you wouldn't do it. Good, I said. That protects you. But Martha, what about the company? Is it over? With a federal smuggling charge and the CEO on the run, I sighed. It doesn't look good, Greg. The fines alone will bankrupt them, and the processors, those chips have a shelf life. Sitting in a damp impound lot for months, they'll be worthless by the time this is sorted. $10 million, Greg whispered. Gone. More than that, I said. The reputation. No supplier will trust Henderson again. We sat in the kitchen, in silence for a while. It was a mourning period for a job we had both loved. Then my landline rang. I hadn't given that number to anyone at work except HR for emergency. Yes. It was Brandon. Martha, he whispered, I need help. Where are you? I asked, putting him on speaker so Greg could hear. I'm at a hotel near the airport. They're looking for me, aren't they? Yes, Brandon. The FBI, Customs, probably the EPA too for the wood. You're a wanted man. I didn't know, he sobbed. I didn't know it was illegal, I just thought. A friend told me it was a good investment, high returns. I didn't know it was endangered. Ignorance of the law is not a defense, Brandon, I said coldly. Especially when you falsify federal documents to hide it. You used my login. You committed identity fraud. I can fix it, he pleaded. If you just say you authorized it, if you say it was a mistake on your end, they'll believe you have a clean record. Are you asking me to take the fall for your smuggling ring? I asked, incredulous. I'll pay you, he cried. I have money, a lot of money, 500,000 cash. Greg looked at me, his eyes wide with disgust. Brandon, I said, my voice steady, you fired me this morning, remember. Dock workers don't negotiate. Well, neither do felons. I hung up, then I unplugged the phone from the wall. The next morning, the story was national news. CEO wanted in Rosewood smuggling scandal. Brandon's face was plastered on every screen. The footage of him fleeing the office was playing on a loop. I received a call from Brody at 9:00 a.m. "Morning, Martha," he said, sounding tired but satisfied. "We found the mother lode, 3 tons of Dalbergia nigra, Brazilian rosewood, hidden in false bottoms of the crates. It's the biggest seizure of its kind in a decade." "Did you catch him?" I asked. "Not yet, but he's not getting far. His accounts are frozen. We're tracking his credit cards. He tried to buy a ticket to Dubai an hour ago, but the card declined." "He called me last night," I said. "Did he?" Brody's tone sharpened. "Did he say where he was?" "A hotel near the airport. He tried to bribe me to take the blame." "Figures," Brody snorted. "Listen, Martha, we need a formal statement from you. About the firing, about the override. It's the final nail in his coffin. Can you come down to the federal building?" "I'll be there in an hour," I said. I dressed in my best suit, the one I used to wear for board meetings. I wasn't going as an employee, I was going as a witness. When I arrived at the federal building, the lobby was crowded. Reporters were swarming. I kept my head down and walked straight to the security checkpoint. Upstairs, in a quiet conference room, I met Brody face to face for the first time in years. He looked older, grayer, but his handshake was firm. "You look good, Martha," he said. "Better than the last time I saw you." "Less stress," I joked weakly. We spent 2 hours going over the timeline. I showed them the emails I had saved on my personal cloud, the timestamps of the system warnings, the text messages from Caroline. It was damning. Brandon had left a digital trail a mile wide. "This is perfect," Brody said, closing the file. "We have him on smuggling, fraud, and obstruction of justice. He's looking at 20 years minimum." "And the company?" I asked. Brody sighed. "The assets are seized. The inventory will be auctioned off to pay the fines. The employees, well, they're victims in this too. But the brand is dead, Martha. Henderson Logistics is history." I nodded, feeling a pang of sadness. Mr. Henderson didn't deserve this. "No," Brody agreed, "but his son did." As I was leaving the building, my cell phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "I'm sorry, please don't do this." It was Brandon. He was still out there, watching his world crumble, realizing too late that you can't buy your way out of everything. I didn't reply. I deleted the message. For 2 days, Brandon stayed hidden. The news cycle was relentless, painting him as a spoiled heir turned international smuggler. I stayed home, watching from the sidelines as the company I had helped build was dissected on national television. Then came the call from Attorney Lynn. "Martha," he said, his voice ragged. "He surrendered, 30 minutes ago, walked into the precinct with his lawyer." "It's over then," I said, feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness. "Not quite," Lynn hesitated. "He's trying to cut a deal. He's claiming he was coerced, that he didn't know about the wood, that someone else set it up." "Who?" I asked, my blood running cold. "You," Lynn said quietly. "He's claiming you organized the shipment, and he only fired you because he found out. He says the override was him trying to stop it, not push it through." I laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. "That's absurd. The digital logs show he bypassed the warning. The timestamps prove he fired me before the override." "I know that," Lynn said, "but he's muddying the waters. He's got expensive lawyers spinning a narrative, their subpoena. In your bank records, your emails, everything. They want to paint you as the mastermind." "Let them look," I said defiantly. "My records are clean, I have nothing to hide." "I hope so," Lynn said. "Because if there's even a single ambiguous email, a single unaccounted deposit, they will tear you apart." I spent the next week in a surreal nightmare of legal depositions. Brandon's lawyers were ruthless. They questioned every decision I had made in 15 years. They insinuated I had a secret gambling problem, a hidden debt, a lover in Brazil. But they found nothing. My life was boringly, beautifully transparent. My bank statements showed a mortgage, grocery bills, and college tuition for my kids. No offshore accounts. No unexplained cash. Meanwhile, the forensic accountants were tearing through Brandon's life, and what they found was damning. Gambling debts, massive ones, to people you don't want to owe money to, that explained the desperation. That explained the rosewood. He needed a quick $10 million to pay off a loan shark, and he thought he could use the company as a mule. The friend he mentioned on the phone, a known associate of organized crime. The evidence was overwhelming. The texts, the emails, the wire transfers, it all pointed to Brandon. And finally, the smoking gun. A recorded call on the company server where Brandon explicitly discussed the wood shipment with his contact 3 days before the seizure. The case against me evaporated instantly. 6 months later, the trial was swift. Brandon pleaded guilty to smuggling, wire fraud, and conspiracy. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Henderson Logistics was dissolved. The assets were auctioned off, the trucks, the warehouse equipment, even the office furniture. The $10 million worth of processors, now obsolete and tied up in litigation, were sold for scrap. I stood outside the empty warehouse one last time. The for sale sign was faded. The parking lot was full of weeds. It was a ghost town. Greg met me there. He had found a new job at a smaller logistics firm across town. He looked tired but steady. "Hard to believe," he said, looking at the building. "We moved a lot of freight through those doors." "We did good work, Greg," I said. "We kept the world moving." "Yeah," he nodded, "until the kid took over." "He got what he deserved," I said, "but it's a shame about the legacy." "The legacy is the people," Greg said. "We all landed on our feet. Caroline is working in it now. Dave got a job at the airport. We're all okay." "That's good to hear," I smiled. "What about you, Martha?" Greg asked. "What's next for the Queen of the Dock?" I looked at the empty building, then at the port in the distance, where ships were still coming and going, an endless rhythm of commerce. "I'm done with logistics," I said. "At least the corporate kind. I'm thinking of consulting, helping small businesses navigate the customs maze on my own terms." "You'll be great at it," Greg said. "Just, maybe get a contract in writing next time, and don't work for anyone named Brandon." We both laughed. It felt good to laugh. 1 year later, I was sitting on my back porch, watching the sunset over the sound. The air was crisp, smelling of salt and pine. My laptop was open on the table, displaying a spreadsheet for my latest client, a local coffee roaster looking to import beans directly from Ethiopia. It was a small job compared to the massive freight of Henderson Logistics, but it was satisfying. I set my own hours. I chose my own clients. And nobody yelled at me about efficiency models. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from my bank. Deposit received, $75,000. It was the settlement check from the wrongful termination lawsuit I had filed against the dissolved estate of Henderson Logistics. It wasn't millions, but it was justice. It covered my lost wages and legal fees with a nice cushion for my consulting business. I closed the laptop and took a sip of iced tea. I thought about Brandon, sitting in a cell somewhere, learning the hard way that in the real world, actions have consequences. He had thought he was above the rules. He thought he could bully the system. He was wrong.